and this is the number of passes that it will go through each test. It's going to go from 0 to 13, and it's going to do that 4 times. The first few tests go through pretty quickly, 0, 1, 2, 3, but the latter tests start to take longer. Here we go. Take a look, Memtest86.com. It's a little bit different. Drive. Navigate. The main menu. Navigate. Here we go. We are going to see. We'll restart the system and boot from that USB drive so that Memtest86 can start running and testing the RAM before Windows even loads. So it's a little bit different type of test, providing a different type of coverage. And it accesses the RAM and starts testing it before the operating system even gets a chance to start any addressable random access memory. So we'll go ahead and download the program, right-click the zip file, go down to Properties, and in the Properties box, we're going to click Unblock this file. Apply and OK, just to minimize any issues with Windows. And once we unblock the file, we're going to extract it. And then go to the extracted folder. Ensure all the contents matches the original zip folder. Make sure our USB drive is plugged into our system. Because, you know, Memtest86 has to format it, and then it will install itself onto that drive. And then we can boot from that drive when we restart. And there is a PDF file in there as well with a user guide, and you can look through that tidbit, read a little more in depth about the instructions of the program. And we can see we have our USB drive, drive N, and we have 241 megabytes free. And that's after formatting, because technically this is a 4 gigabyte drive. We're gonna lose a lot of capacity on this drive, so stay tuned to the very end of this video. But for now, we're still inside that extracted folder of Memtest86, and we've closed the user manual, and now we're gonna run the program from our desktop so that it can start formatting and installing itself onto our USB drive. We're going to choose our verbatim store and go USB drive. And in step 2, we're going to select write image to USB drive. And we're going to leave everything else at default. Step 3, we're going to select the image. And the image is on our desktop, which is going to be a C drive or wherever it was downloaded. Here, this is our current user account location of that Memtest86 folder that we extracted. And it's going to be looking for the Memtest86-USB.img bootable image file. And below that, we're just going to click Write. Then we're going to receive this dialog box, which states, you have chosen to write an image to the following USB drive, source, and then it will have the source of the image that we are writing to the USB drive, which is the location of our extracted folder with the Memtest86-USB.img file. And the destination will be our USB drive. And it's going to ask, is this correct? And we're going to select hell yeah. And once we select yes, we'll receive a final dialog box which states, final warning, the contents of the selected drive will be replaced. Continuing will cause destruction of the data and possible loss of capacity. Destruction of data? Loss of capacity? Yeah, sign me up. Because it's gonna reformat that USB drive and possibly cause a loss of capacity because of the way it's going to provision and partition the drive. We're gonna lose a lot of storage space on that USB. So if this is an old drive that you're gonna dedicate to being strictly a Memtest86 USB testing stick, then you could be okay. But if you want to recover that lost space from the USB drive after you're finished testing utilizing Memtest86 so that we can then use it again to store pictures or music or other files, then again, stay tuned to the end of this video. We're going to walk through how to recover and regain that lost USB storage capacity. But for now, we're just going to click yes. And the program is going to start formatting the drive and placing the USB bootable image onto the USB drive. And we can see the right progress in the top box up there. And here it changed the format, converting it to a FAT file system. And we can see the overall progress in the middle there in the green, indicating the progress level. If you have a newer USB drive, this is probably going to go a lot faster. This one is reformatting and writing very slowly. So we'll speed up through it, and it's logging the output into the lower box. And when it's finished, it's going to flash imaging completed. And we'll click refresh drive. Everything looks good. We'll close the program. And now we can see our USB has been formatted and the contents of Memtest86 has been created onto the drive. And now we can restart the system. We're going to enter the boot menu. And to enter the boot menu, when we restart the system, we're going to press F11 during the BIOS UEFI start screen. Different systems may have different keys that need to be pressed to enter the boot menu. If you're utilizing an older BIOS or you don't have your BIOS set up to utilize UEFI functionality, you have it set up in legacy mode, then Memtest86 suggests to boot into the BIOS and enable UEFI functionality. If you're utilizing an older BIOS and you do not have UEFI functionality, you'll have to use an older version of Memtest86, and we'll link that in the video description below. But current versions of Memtest86 are to be utilized on modern UEFI systems. Once we press F11, we'll see the boot menu listing all of our hard drives and USB drives, any drives connected to the system listed. And now we can go down and select one of the drives to boot from just one time. And we're going to select our USB verbatim store and go, partition 1. And we know it's the store and go is the USB drive we're looking for because verbatim is the brand and the model, store and go, of the USB drive that we utilized to install Memtest86. So once we click that, it will now perform a single boot from the USB drive containing Memtest86. And here we can see Memtest86 is accessing the system information and retrieving the hardware info. Now,
we're on the Memtest86
start screen. Keep in mind, this is where the magic happens. In the top right, we see the memory test counting down from 10 seconds. Once it reaches the final countdown, it will begin testing automatically. For new users, that's probably the best thing. Just let it count down and it will start testing automatically and start testing all of the installed RAM in the system. We can use our arrow keys to go left or right to exit the program or go into the configuration menu. For the demonstration, we're just going to let it start automatically. And the orange color readout tells us how much of the current test has passed. And we can see that test 1 has finished very quickly. And now we're on test 2, address test, own address. And we are 25% through past number 1. And we'll just let it do its thing, and it can take a while, depending on the RAM and components installed in each system. And at the bottom of the testing screen is a description of how to escape the test or hotkey into a configuration menu. And to do that, we can click Escape on our keyboard or C on our keyboard, or possibly use our mouse if it's working here. Once we press C for configuration menu, a settings box will appear. And we're going to select option number 3, go back to the main menu. But we can see there's some other things that we can do here. We can skip the current test, end the test completely, or close the menu box and continue testing. We're going to select number 3 to take us back to the main menu. In the main menu, one thing that can be confusing is how to navigate the primary menu categories. We can utilize our mouse if our mouse is working, but not everyone's mouse is going to be working or working well on this particular screen. We can use our up and down keys on the keyboard to navigate between the sub-menu options of the category that we are currently in. Here we're in the System Info category, but how do we get over to navigate the left menu options if our mouse isn't working here? And if we look closely at the menu category options, address range, CPU selection, start test, RAM benchmark, and each option has a letter in parentheses. That is the letter which we will click on our keyboard to gain access to that particular menu category option. If we wanted to get access to address range, we would press A on our keyboard. To get access to CPU selection, we would press C on our keyboard. That is one thing that can be a little bit confusing, but that's probably the most confusing aspect of Memtest86 as far as just undergoing some basic memory testing. Once we get that figured out, the rest is pretty straightforward, and it stays pretty automated. And these are the different tests in the test selection category, and this is the number of passes that it will go through each test. It's going to go from 0 to 13, and it's going to do that 4 times. The first few tests go through pretty quickly, as we saw, 0, 1, 2, 3, but the latter tests start to take longer. The first test it's going to test is the address test, test 0. Test 1, address test, own address, 1 CPU. Test 2, address test, own address. Test 3, moving inversions, 1s and 0s. Test 4, moving inversions, 8-bit pattern. Test 5, moving inversions, random pattern. Test 6, block move, 64-byte blocks. Test 7, moving inversions, 32-bit pattern. Test 8, random number sequence. Test 9, modulo 20, 1s and 0s. Test 10, bit fade test, 2 patterns, 1 CPU. Test 13. I'm not sure how we got from test 10 to test 13 here. Here we go. Test 11 and 12 are only available in the Pro version. Okay, so we're utilizing the free version, so that's why it skips from 10 to 13 on the test numbers over here in the menu. And test 13 is the hammer test. And here it tells the number of passes the test is going to complete. And here it tells the pass you're on, here on the testing screen. And up here in the green, it tells you how far you are through the current pass. So we are 8% through the current pass. So we have 92% left to get through pass number 1. And then it will go through pass number 2, pass number 3, pass number 4, and they're all the same tests, but they're designed to keep running this number of passes to try and help identify and root out issues that might not happen every time. And these are issues that are considered intermittent issues, and they don't happen all of the time. We're going to see the errors here in the lower right next to the pass number.